What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a very cool submission from the Vibing Noob who's running a very spicy triple buff team with Shadow Venomoth, XL Palpitoad, and one of the rarest Shadow Pokemon in the entire game, Shadow Kabutops. Now the reason this Pokemon is so rare is because it was accidentally released during one of the recent Team Rocket takeover events, but I think it was only in rotation for a few hours before being removed, so for anyone lucky enough to have caught one in that time, they got to keep it, but for everyone else, it could genuinely be years before we get the chance to catch this Pokemon again. But anyways, Kabutops unfortunately has never really been usable until this season where it gained access to Aqua Jet, which completely transforms this Pokemon, not into top meta by any means, but is now certainly a lot more playable, and in its shadow form, this thing can be deadly. It's also now got the option of 3 very decent fast moves with Mud Shot and Waterfall, but also this trainer is running Legacy Fury Cutter, which of course means they had to use an Elite Fast TM to get that move. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. Are there any other mistakes that Niantic/Scopely have made that you've personally benefited from? So for example, any other Pokemon that have accidentally released ahead of time, or maybe a shiny form of a Pokemon came out before it was announced, or maybe a Pokemon released with a legacy move that it wasn't expected to have. Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Venomoth into Talonflames. Of course, this is not a great matchup whatsoever. Kabutops going to be an absolute hard wall to that Pokemon, but we're going to be safe swapping into Palpitoad instead, as we go straight for an Earth Power. The opponent going to come in with a Morpeko. Now, they could be on Seed Bomb, but we're not going to shield, and it is just the Aura Wheel there. So, I'm not really sure why they came in with Morpeko. Potentially, they just don't have a great response whatsoever, but let's find out. We're going to shield here, as the opponent is going to full send another Aura Wheel, and at this point, we can now look to overfarm just a little bit and then fire off the Earth Power. We're now at back-to-back charge moves here. Earth Power gonna be shielded, and the opponent does not throw straight away, meaning Earth Power number 3 will connect and it gets the KO. The opponent gonna come back in with the Talonflame, and unfortunately they do get a very nice farm down. However, they blind throw. We're gonna shield anyways. I'm not so sure about that, as the opponent does go for a double resisted Flame Charge. Honestly, yeah, we did not need to shield there, but either way, they're gonna come in with their final Pokemon, a Clodsire, so it turns out they were just triple weak to the Palpitoad. We're now going to swap back into Venomoth. Sidewaves dealing super effective damage. They go for an Earthquake there, which probably implies they don't have Stone Edge, and instead their secondary charge move likely would have been Sludge Bomb. But either way, we fire off the Poison Fang. Poison Fang gonna drop their defense. Not that we need it really. As we come back in with the Shadow Kabutops, the opponent gonna have to full send a Brave Bird, but Aqua Jet comfortably gets the KO there, and we're able to take that game. So heading into the next battle, we're going to see a Swampert in the lead. So this is going to be a fairly neutral matchup here, but eventually we might look to swap out. But actually, no, never mind. The opponent is going to be swapping out, and they come in with the Skeledirge. We're going to come in with the Palpitoad. The opponent going to go for a Torch Song bait there, which is a great call by us. We can now go for an Earth Power. Earth Power is going to be shielded by the opponent. Unfortunately, it does not drop their defense. But either way, we're now going to look to shield the next charge route, as the opponent going to go for another Torch Song. And unfortunately, it does look like the opponent can just spam out these Torch Songs here, and potentially in the 2-shield scenario, they might be able to fully farm us down before we get to the next move. So actually not going to bother shielding here. The opponent once again goes for another Torch Song, but now we can come in with the Kabutops, and we could have thrown straight away, but the opponent tries to make the catch there. We're just going to continue to overfarm with the Shadow Kabutops as they fire off the Hydro Cannon. We now go for an Aqua Jet. Unfortunately, we don't quite have back-to-back just yet, but Aqua Jet easily gets the KO. They come back in with the Skeledirge, but I believe this is just going to be another Torch Song that is double resisted. We're actually going to swap out that matchup. Interesting play there. But of course, Fury Cutters were double resisted, but we get the farm down with Venomoth, and we've got the Silver Wind. Silver Wind gets the one-shot after the damage buff this season, and we're able to take that game. So heading into the next battle, we're going to see another Swampert in the lead. So once again, the opponent is going to look to swap out of that matchup pretty much straight away, which is quite interesting. I don't know if that implies that they've got some sort of ABB style team where they try and bait out the hardest answer to their backlines, or maybe they just want to swap out their Swampert matchup because they didn't think it was very good into Venomoth. Either way, we're going to bait with a Poison Fang. Now we're going for Silver Wind, and unfortunately that doesn't quite do enough damage to KO. And of course, these Sidewaves, they haven't really added up over time, as they are non-stab and double resisted. But we come in with the Palpitoad, the opponent going to come back in with the Swampert, and of course we are going to look to no shield here. The opponent goes for the Hydro Cannon, which is going to be enough damage to two-shot us. We're now going to look to overfarm a little bit and then fire off the Earth Power. Earth Power, going to connect. It does decent damage once again. However, unfortunately, not really going to allow us to farm them down with the Palpitoad. So we come in with the Kabutops, and unfortunately for the opponent, they're going to have a Talonflame, and this should be game over. We go for Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet, not respected. It gets the one-shot. We didn't even need to full send a Stone Edge. We can now just Fury Cutter farm down the Swampert, and we're able to take that game. Heading into the next battle, we're going to see a Galarian Stunfisk, so that is an awful matchup for the Venomoth. We swap into Palpitoad, and we're met with a Shadow for Alligator, which honestly is a fairly neutral matchup here. You see Earth Power does big damage, and we drop their defense this time around. We should live a single Hydro Cannon. They probably will reach back-to-back moves here, unfortunately, but we should be able to no-shield here, maintain alignment, which is going to be very nice for us, and, well, we just barely get there as well, so we're not really going to give much farm into whatever Pokemon comes in. Unfortunately, we blind throw a Water Pulse, which I don't think really makes an awful lot of sense just because both moves would have been super effective into the Galarian Stunfisk anyways, but either way, it doesn't really matter. We've got the alignment we want. We actually go for a Poison Fang, throwing on CMP. They go for Drill Run. We swap into our Kabutops, and they come back in with the Stunfisk. And of course, we are taking super effective damage from the Mud Shots, and we will take super effective from an Earthquake, but Aqua Jet does huge damage there, and despite the fact that Fury Cutters are going to be resisted, we can probably just Fury Cutter, farm them all the way down here. We're actually not taking that risk, however. Instead, gonna throw the charge move. Aqua Jet gonna be shielded, and you can see they do just barely reach another charge move here. So, Earthquake gonna get the KO, but can we sideway farm down? No, unfortunately, just barely not able to do so. I wonder if we did try and commit to a Fury Cutter farm down, maybe we could have won that game. But into the next battle, we're gonna see a Haunter in the lead. A great matchup for us, as the opponent clearly just doesn't know what fast move we've got here. The opponent gonna throw the Shadow Punch. They're now gonna swap out into a Ninetales, and we come in with the Palpitoad. However, unfortunately, this is not a great matchup for us, but they go for a Weather Ball. They had the Energy Ball there. Just throw it. What are you doing, trainer? We can now go for Earth Power. Earth Power, gonna maintain alignment. They come back in with a Haunter, and they will reach another Shadow Punch. We might just barely live this, but I think actually they might be able to Shadow Claw farm us down. No, never mind. We barely hang on with 1 HP and a Dream. We come out with the Earth Power loaded, and Earth Power is going to be shielded. We're gonna come back in with the Shadow Venomoth here, and we're going straight for Silverwind. Silverwind, gonna be shielded. We get the boost here. I tried to use a Triple Moth team on stream the other day, and unfortunately I just got no boost every single time I threw the Silverwind, but finally we get to see a boost. We actually tanked that. I don't know if that was because of the boost or if maybe they undercharged that, but either way we should be looking fine here. We're going to shield the Mud Bomb, we're going to go for the Aqua Jet, and this is super effective damage. From this range, of course, it will be taking out the Stunfisk, and we're able to take that game. So going into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Venomoth into Credilli. So this is going to be a pretty decent matchup for us, just because, of course, we are going to resist the fast move pressure, while Psywaves are hitting for neutral. And of course, we can now go for Silverwind. Silverwind going to be shielded. Potentially could have baited with a Poison Fang there, as it's very likely that they will shield, as they can now go for a Rock Tomb. But either way, we can now fire off a second Silverwind. Now, we've just been debuffed, but it is super effective. Silverwind still gets the KO, and we get another boost, which is awesome to see. Of course, now our attack is just going to be neutral, but our defense has now been single stage boosted. We go for a Poison Fang, dropping their defense, and we are going to force them to throw some energy. The opponent going to go for Brutal Swing. It is quite likely that they do have Trailblaze for coverage here, so I personally would be looking to shield. We're not going to shield though. Trailblaze gets the KO, but they swap out into Quagsire, and with a shield we should be looking fine. We're going to shield the first charge we've hit, as the opponent is just going to go for an Aqua Tail, but as long as we overfarm to the point where we're very close to back-to-back charge moves, we should be looking good. However, unfortunately, no, Aqua Jet doesn't do as much damage as I was expecting. Aqua Tail also doesn't quite KO, but unfortunately, they can just Mud Shot, farm us down, and we end up losing that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see a Pelipper in the lead. So not a great matchup for us, but also Palpitoad is going to be completely walled, so kind of forced to just stay in this matchup here. We're actually going to look to shield, which I'm not so sure about, but we can now go for a Poison Fang, and we've done a lot of damage with the Psywaves, in all honesty. Poison Fang going to be shielded, and the opponent committing to a full farm down because we overfarmed there. They lost track of our energy, and Poison Fang barely doesn't quite get the KO. That is unfortunate for us, but it does put them into range where we can just mudshot farm them down, so we're going to do exactly that. They're now going to come in with a Ferret, another Pokemon which unfortunately likely going to have Trail Blades, although Brick Break does seem to be a little bit more popular these days, so maybe we can look to no-shield the first charge move. I guess let's find out. It is unfortunately another Trail Blaze there. That is not ideal for us. However, maybe, just maybe, we can fully Fury Cutter farm them down. The opponent going to go for another Trail Blaze there, wasting energy, which means, can we get the farm down? Yes, we get that farm down, and their final Pokemon, unfortunately, again, is going to be another Quagsire. We already know Aqua Jet, whilst it is going to hit fairly hard, it's not going to be enough damage to KO. We do have back-to-back, but they still had a shield in play, and as a result, they can just mudshot farm us down, and so unfortunately, we lose yet another game. But it's the next battle, and another really poor lead for the Venomoth, but we're actually going to choose to stay in here, because if we swap out straight away, they just outpace us to an Energy Ball, whereas now, we're able to catch a resisted Weather Ball. So I do really like that play there. They're now going to come in with a Wigglytuff, which did get nerfed this season, but maybe we'll actually still see a lot of play here, just because people are going to disrespect it. Either way, I don't really mind too much. I do really appreciate the nerf to Charm. It just means that in neutral matchups like this one, it's not going to be completely dominant, but of course the opponent does shield the first charge move. We're going to come in with the Venomoth, and we are going to look to shield here and then commit to a full sideway farm down. The opponent comes back in with the Ninetales. We're going to go for the Poison Fang, and can we catch another Weather Ball? Let's find out. No, never mind. We're going to go straight for a second Poison Fang here, look to grab the final shield, and then potentially look to swap out and catch a charge move, but no, never mind. We are going to stop trying to predict what this trainer is going to do, because we seem to be wrong every single time, but we get the full Fury Cutter farm down, and let's see what the opponent has in the back. They're going to have a, well, they come in with the Alolan Sand Slash. We look to try and go for a full farm there, but actually we realize we're taking big damage from these charms, despite the fact that it was nerfed. The opponent gonna concede the match, and so we're able to take that game. So, heading into the next battle, we're going to see Venomoth into Primeape. This is going to be a really nice matchup for us. Sidewave's going to hit for big damage, so the opponent swaps out into Feraligatr, but because they swap out, they are one turn behind, meaning we can just barely outpace to a Poison Fang. So, we're actually just going to look to stay in this matchup here. Sidewaves are still going to add up over time, as of course we've just debuffed their defense, and again, we're going to look to throw a Poison Fang, but this time I think we throw slightly later on CMP potentially, and we do force the CMP tie. We're now going to look to double shield as well. We should be able to Sidewave farm them all the way down from this range, and we will come out with another Poison Fang loaded. They're now going to come in with an Aegislash, which is not great for us, so we're going to swap out and into our Palpitoad. The opponent going to come back in with the Primeape. We can go straight for Earth Power. Earth Power going to deal big damage. If they go for close combat here, this should do a lot of damage in return, but it doesn't get the KO, so we get the full farm down, and Aegislash is going to have a problem trying to farm us down here. I think they might eventually get it in the end, but maybe we get to back-to-back Earth Powers before that, and yes, we're able to do so. Palpitoad coming in clutch with the second Earth Power, taking out the Aegislash, and we're able to take that game. So heading into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Venomoth into Gengar. So we've seen Haunter already, we're now going to see a Gengar as well. Really nice matchup for us, regardless of whether it's the Haunter or the Gengar. Of course, we will shield, as they are going to hit very hard with the Shadow Punch, but we can now just commit to a full Tideway farm down. No! They get damage registration error, and they actually reach a second Shadow Punch. That is really unfortunate for us, as it does force both of our shields. But now they come in with a Swampert. We've got a lot of energy. Maybe could have baited with a Poison Fang there, but this time we're going to go for a Poison Fang. That is interesting to do it this way round, but they are going to double shield anyways, and we will force them to throw some energy. This way we guarantee that the debuff, this should allow an Earth Power from the Palpitoad to get the knockout. So of course, all shields are down on both ends right now. We are going to look to overfarm just a little bit and throw before they reach the next Hydro Cannon. Earth Power, we go for the undercharge, it still gets the KO anyways. Their final Pokemon gonna be a Wigglytuff, and I really like that play of banking the charge move before we swap out, because here, of course, Shadow Kabutops is gonna resist both the Swift and the Icy Wind. The opponents, they can't commit to the farm down. They do a perfect job of overfarming. However, unfortunately for them, it doesn't really matter. Actually, they had Ice Beam anyway, so maybe they just threw straight away. I don't really know, but either way, Water Pulse gets the knockout, and we're able to take that game. So, heading into the next battle, Shadow Venomoth into Fortress. So, this is going to be interesting to see what fast move they're on. We're going to see Volt Switch, so we will be swapping out of that matchup. And we're going to come in with the Palpitoad. The opponent going to go for a Sand Tomb here before swapping out into a Rollout Licky Licky. Now, even though we're debuffed here, we should still be able to live a Shadow Ball fairly comfortably. And it looks like 2 Earth Powers with some more Mudshot damage will be enough to 2-shot them. So, the opponent goes for Shadow Ball. I don't think they will be able to Rollout Farm us down. And we're going to look to overfarm and then throw another Earth Power. Earth Power from this range grabs a shield, but Palpitoad, we're going to bank the Earth Power. I personally probably would have just thrown it straight away there. That way we could have either grabbed both shields or maintained alignment, but I guess we forced the Fortress to come back out, which is kind of good because with Volt Switch, our Kabutops is really going to struggle. Whereas here, we're actually able to reach both a Silver Wind and a Poison Fang, and Poison Fang is unfortunately not shielded there. I thought maybe they would shield that, but either way, we're not going to bother shielding ourselves. The opponent goes for Rock Tomb there. Can we Fury Cut to farm them down? Unfortunately, not before they do reach another charge move. So here, of course, I'm going to use our final shield. They go for the Sand Tomb there. Their final Pokemon is going to be Altaria, and we're in a really tricky situation. We kind of need the opponent to call a bait, and Stone Edge, unfortunately, going to be shielded. We realize there's nothing we can do anymore, and so we just concede the match. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Hydreigon in the lead. This is really tricky for us. We're actually going to swap into our Kabutops because those Fury Cutters absolutely shredding through their HP. Here, both charge moves are resisted. Actually, everything is resisted. But Stone Edge, unfortunately, is shielded. I thought we would land that there. But we are in a tricky situation. We're going to come in with a Palpitoad, and of course, we are taking neutral damage from these waterfalls. Mud shots hitting for super effective damage. They go for the Hydro Cannon, dealing pretty decent damage there, and we will have to shield the next charge move. We're going to have to throw pretty early here, otherwise they will reach another charge move. We do overfarm just a little bit there. The opponent's still not throwing another charge move, but we do get the knockout. They're now going to come in with a what's this thing called? Jirachi. That is quite a strange decision, but we do grab the final shield there. Of course, these confusions absolutely shredding through us, but they don't throw a charge move. That is such a strange decision there. Silver Wind. Oh, we get the boost again, but unfortunately, it's not enough for us, as they can just confusion farm us all the way down, and we lose that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see Carbink in the lead. That is a really bad matchup for us. We're swapping into our Kabutops just because actually our Palpitoad is going to have a really good matchup there. We are now going to spam out these Arc Jets at an alarming rate. So the first one coming through, going to deal big damage there, and the opponent going to look to overfarm slightly. And as a result, we can go for another Arc Jet. Arc Jet number 2 going to be shielded. We're also going to look to shield here. The opponent going to full send the Shadow Ball, which means we should now reach another Arc Jet. I thought it was going to be on a CMP tie, but actually the opponent does look to overfarm again, but they give up switch advantage. They then come in with a Ninetales. Can we live a Weather Ball here? It's double resisted, but we are very low. Unfortunately, no, that does get the knockout, but we're actually going to be forced to come in with the Venomoth, which is obviously not ideal for us. However, we're going to look to shield here, and are we going to try and catch a Weather Ball onto our final Pokemon? Not just yet, as we will fire off the Poison Fang. Poison Fang going to be shielded. That's a CMP tie. However, we are in trouble. If they've got Energy Ball, which they should have, well, actually, no, never mind. They swap out of that matchup, and that might just hand us the win here. The opponent, they should be going for Moonblast. Moonblast does decent damage there, but these Rock Throws, they are not adding up much at all. If they stayed in with the Ninetales, they could have outpaced us very comfortably to the Energy Ball, whereas now all we need to do is look to massively overfarm. We're able to do exactly that. Fire off the Earth Power. Earth Power number 2 gets the knockout, and again, we're going for Water Pulse. I'm not really sure why that is. Both Earth Power and Water Pulse are now 50 energy, but either way, we get the knockout, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see Venomoth into Pelipper. So once again, a bit of a tricky matchup for us because we can't swap out into our safe swap, which is typically the Palpitoad, but actually made a lot easier for us because the opponent swaps out of a really dominant matchup into a Charge Bug, and now we can just come in, and of course, Palpitoad was completely useless up against the Pelipper, and pretty good here into a Volt Switch user. So the opponent is going to be able to outpace us. No, actually, they throw on CMP, and we win CMP. Earth Power grabs a shield. Do we bother shielding? No, we're not going to bother shielding here. Just going to let it go down. X-Scissor will get the knockout, but we come in with the Venomoth, and unfortunately they do reach another charge move. But we can now look to shield as they fire off the discharge, and then we go for a full farm down. They're going to come in with a second Mud Boy in the form of Whiscash this time around, which means we can align our Kabutops, which completely walls the Pelipper up against the Pelipper, of course. So at this point, we probably don't need to shield this. Mud Bomb doesn't quite get the knockout there. We're looking to overfarm, and we farm up to back-to-back Poison Fangs. Now, of course, this is resisted damage, but Poison Fang barely doesn't get the knockout, but it doesn't really matter at this point. We should be looking fine. We can come in with the Kabutops. They come back in with a Pelipper. Now, a Hurricane would still deal a lot of damage, and actually, no, never mind, we don't wall them because Weather Ball is going to hit for neutral damage here. That is a mistake on my end. I'm sure someone's already commented trying to correct me in the comments, but either way, we bait with the Aqua Jet. And it looks like we're trying to just throw another Aqua Jet here. That is quite interesting. Weather Ball, unfortunately, does so much damage there. And unfortunately, I thought we had that in the bag. But of course, Weather Ball, neutral damage, basically one-shots us there. And we end up losing that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see Regidrago in the lead. So we are going to shield the first charge move here. This is just going to be a Vice Grip, but we can now look to potentially bait. But nope, never mind. They swap out into Talonflame. We swap out immediately, but we come in with the Palpitoad. Now, Kabutops would be a better response just because we completely wall their energy. But like we've already seen, even if Kabutops is completely resisting everything they can throw, it doesn't necessarily mean that we will be able to tank it. Now they come back in with the Regidrago. We're going straight for the Earth Power. Earth Power is going to be shielded by the opponent, and then we go for the combo play, going for a Poison Fang straight away with the Venomoth, grabbing the final shield. They now swap out into Fortress, but we can go for these Silver Winds. Unfortunately, we've only got resisted damage to throw, but Silver Wind, nope, never mind, not going to get the boost this time around, but it looks like that might have been a CMP tie. Silver Wind, we get the boost this time, which doesn't really help us, but that is the CMP tie. That is huge for us. We're now going to come in with the Kabutops, and we make a very nice play there, catching the charge move as they fire off the Sand Tomb. We could probably Fury Cut to farm them down, so the opponent swaps back into their Regidrago. The opponent is going to bait with a Vice Grip. Shouldn't really matter too much. We can full send the Stone Edge this time around, and Stone Edge will very comfortably get the knockout. And then, of course, low HP here. Of course, Volt Switch is super effective, but we Fury Cut to farm them down to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.